The Big Three are some of Shonen's most powerful and iconic characters. In effect, you could probably say that without them, the explosion of anime into the mainstream, especially in the English-speaking world, might never have occurred in the first place. But these three series all share one more thing in common. And no, it's not that they're all anime, but that these three all really like Dragon Ball. From their techniques to their personalities and even designs, if Luffy, Ichigo, and Naruto are the fathers of anime, then Goku, the man inspiring their any and every decision, could be seen as the literal grand poobah of the anime-manga world. So it only makes sense that with three obvious successors, people would talk about one of them eventually taking Goku's place. And in this particular case, we're taking that concept a bit more literally to ask if either Naruto, Ichigo, Luffy, or even all three of them at once were tasked with the insurmountable goal of taking his place, how far would they actually make it, replacing the notoriously powerful ultimate defender of both Shonen Jump and the Dragon Ball franchise, before some big bad ultimately rolled along and it's lights out for everyone. If you're ready to find out if the trio can keep up with the solo, then hit that big red button down below for me. And this is the Big Three versus DBZ. Round 1.
Here, take this, you mean old bully!
Yeah, no, did you really think I was gonna cover every single fight in Dragon Ball in a 10-minute video? So how we're actually gonna do this is pretty simple. I'll take you through the overarching story of Dragon Ball through its many sagas without considering factors like aging, power progression, or changes in the plot caused by these three being around for this particular video. Though you can leave a comment down below if you'd enjoy to see more of that what if style of video in the future, but instead of trying to make Kid Luffy, Naruto, or Ichigo fight an entire army or the literal devil twice, what we're gonna do is replace Goku at every major point with one of the big three in their prime, so Gear 5 Luffy, Horn of Salvation Ichigo, and Sage of Six Paths Naruto. And once we arrive at a point where the trio stop one-shotting everyone, I'll tell you where they each stop. But just in case you're one of the 5 people out there who doesn't know any of these three, I'll give you a quick breakdown of who they are and their abilities, so you can kind of have a better gauge of how this video will go. Luffy is a rubbery, cartoonish pirate man who lives in the world of One Piece, on an adventure to find a treasure of the same name, traveling the seas to battle many other pirates and attain the title of Pirate King. In terms of his strength, he's directly comparable with other Emperors of the Sea, who are equally top tier as the strongest pirates, such as Whitebeard and Kaido, who are stated to possess world-destroying powers more times than I can count, with multiple feats of massive multi-continental scale earthquakes, and displays of sky-splitting, continent-shattering, and tectonic-shifting power, all before noticing that Luffy could make his fist the size of an island, which Luffy can only manage to make so big because when his hair turns white using Gear 5, he is a user of basic Toon Force, giving him a level of minor reality manipulation to alter things in ways in which he finds funny, as well as having other hacks like the ability to see the actual future, giving him casual FTL combat speed, and advanced Conqueror's coding, which can bypass typical physical defenses by blasting straight into the organs. Naruto, on the other hand, is a blonde-haired knucklehead ninja who lives in a universe of the same name. He was on an adventure to become Hokage, but nowadays, after accomplishing his goal, he basically settled down with his 2 kids and, well, we're gonna just assume the story ended right there. In terms of strength, it's as simple as flipping his internal 9-tailed nightlight on, because as soon as he lets his glow-in-the-dark pet dog out of the box, we've seen him take moon-level attacks just fine without any damage, with multiple higher feats of straight-up planet-level and beyond destruction, while even ignoring that his list of powers and abilities is also quite a bit longer than Luffy's. But just considering the Demon Fox Kurama as his power source, he has a variety of nature-based attacks, the ability to make clones of himself, flight, and a variety of Rasen somethings for every situation. He also has multi-dimensional precognition on a similar level to, but slightly less powerful than, Luffy's future sight. And lastly, we have the easy one, Ichigo. He has no dreams, he has no motive, he is a dude who got a magic sword from a ghost girl he just met, and he's been running the fade with anyone who would let him ever since. Ichigo pretty much has no hacks and is a power-based fighter through and through, simply having the ability to fly, sort of, and shoot laser beams. But in terms of raw stats, he should easily be the most dangerous of the bunch, since his ability to stack power multiplication with sword beams while already scaling to someone who can destroy multiple worlds all at once is more than pretty impressive. Although Ichigo is also the only one to lack any form of precognition, so that is something to keep in mind. But now that you're acquainted with all of them briefly, yeah, like I said, it should be pretty clear that Goku's early journey in OG Dragon Ball, consisting mostly of fighting random animals and collecting the Dragon Balls throughout the Pilaf Saga, isn't going to be any kind of problem for the Rubber God, Ninja God, and Ghost God, meaning they'll summon Shenron and move on about their business, with this streak of complete and utter domination casually keeping up as they attend the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai, and with one roar, slash, and giant stomp, we'd be right on our way out of there, with each of them going on to casually backhand every major and minor villain in between, soloing armies, beating up some ghosts, and getting a second title belt, all during the first 135 chapters of the manga, keeping on an incredible streak before a very minor wrench is put in their plan with the Demon King Piccolo. But I only say a very minor mention to him because not only does he need to charge up his strongest attacks for them to even work, but he also has trash stamina and reactions, so the Dragon Ball speed run goes over without a hitch honestly, right up until the very end of the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai, where, while Naruto and Ichigo at their casual planet level feats should just stroll through fine, maybe even just in base, Luffy, with his story being notoriously as slow as it is, would be capped at a level of power much more akin to Naruto and Ichigo's respective war arcs, since as you can guess, despite beating a Yonko, Luffy's story isn't anywhere near done yet. And with the current level of power he has in the story, I think he could actually struggle a bit to get the title of Strongest Under the Heavens. As while I did sort of brush aside most of OG Dragon Ball, Master Roshi by himself could blow up the whole moon if given time to charge up his maximum power, which wasn't really worth mentioning since no one in the prior arcs had attacks like this, or if they did, they wouldn't have even tried to use them in a friendly fight, such as Tien literally telling Goku to dodge when he first used the Tri-Beam, since he was afraid it would unalive him. But since Piccolo could literally replicate this moon-destroying feat with one hand, the level of stat disparity here between one of Piccolo's key waves and Luffy's max earth-shaking power is sort of noticeable, with Piccolo even getting light speed scaling off that moon blast. So when discussing our first remotely close match in the video of Ma Jr. versus the Sun God Nika, Luffy will be the first of the big three to get pushed to the brink and forced into transformation, bringing him into his Gear 5 form, where this fight basically comes down to two factors, speed and hacks. And because Piccolo's blast needs to be charged up and his base stats are likely around half as strong as his blast, Luffy with his absurd Toon Force should be able to damage and pressure Piccolo with his greater speed scaling and future sight, likely negging the combat skill edge of the Demon King's perfect creation by a slight bit, with the only real problem that Luffy might face being if Piccolo just tries to nuke him off the map with one of said blasts. But considering Luffy's greatest strength is his durability and the fact that Luffy has been shown to flip massive blast on his opponents before, I'll narrowly give the W to Luffy, letting every member of the big three clear OG Dragon Ball with the title of Strongest Man Under the Heavens, or Energy Blast in the later half of Dragon Ball, perhaps threatening the crew a little bit along the way. But of course, what happens when we go beyond the heavens to dip straight into the stars? Now in a battle against the cosmos. Yes, for the first part of the Dragon Ball Z section, they're up against an opponent who even Goku, with all his years and title as the strongest, couldn't hope to defeat: his brother, Raditz. With a power level of 1200 to 1600 in terms of general progression, the same moon leveling attacks we see Piccolo fire with one hand get easily shrugged off without a flinch, which he also proceeds to do with the far stronger Super Kamehameha, as well as then using one of his own single casual blasts to completely disintegrate Piccolo's arm. But like I did say, Goku couldn't beat him by himself and had help from Piccolo, so how do the big three fare in a comparison with the same situation? Well, in my mind, Ichigo is still pretty consistently front-running, with his basic True Shikai form granting him consistent planetary and beyond scaling, which should just be above Raditz in every single way, as his own scaling barely ranges in the small planet to planetary ranges. And while some might doubt Naruto's abilities, he has handled Planet Busters in the past before, such as Toneri and Kaguya, so while Naruto might need his Kurama Chakra, his ability to also no-sell moon-level attacks convinces me pretty nicely that an adult Naruto could handle Raditz pretty consistently. Of Poor Luffy, on the other hand, though, who was already struggling to keep up with that late Dragon Ball scaling, is gonna need all the help he can get, as even at his best, Luffy probably lacks the physical capability to even harm Raditz at all. And while both he and Raditz are consistently FTL, and Luffy might vaguely etch him out with the future sight, a single blast from a casual Raditz would delete him from existence, so Luffy is under constant threat of an L here. However, just like the main timeline, he does actually have an out, as after being helped by Piccolo, Goku manages to get behind Raditz at one point during the fight, then grabs his tail, which is a weak point of the Saiyans, and it nerfs him completely out of the fight. Goku, however, does Goku things, causing Raditz to escape, but since Luffy is both faster and can actually see the events of the future playing out before they happen, he won't fall for that trick, unironically letting all the big three pass one more massive hurdle straight on to King Kai's, albeit by a bit of a technicality. Which we can see pretty clearly, since in just a 1v1 the lacking stats would become a pretty big issue, as we'd find out right about here with Goku's return from the other world falling flat on its face if Luffy was in charge, as he'd get immediately one-tapped by Nappa worse than his fight with Kaido. We are talking about a character here who's at a power level between 4,000 and 7,500, who is multiple times stronger than the near planet-busting Raditz, considering him consistently fodder, and with any power level above or around 10,000 being confirmed to close in on large planet level destruction without the use of special techniques, it speaks pretty highly to Nappa's abilities. And even if we go out of our way to grant Luffy power equal to Raditz for some unearthly reason, literally this same Yamcha who got Yamcha'd in this legendary meme also has a power level higher than Raditz at this point. So just like in the main canon, when the stakes got this intense, everyone needed massive power-ups, and if they didn't get them, bodies were bound to hit the floor. So Luffy is the first one out. But can the other two compete with the rising stakes? And well, yeah, I'd actually say so, since at the bare minimum these two are still planetary, unlike their straw hat wearing friend. And while Naruto would be stuck exclusively in Sage of Six Path Kurama mode from here on, his stats should still be reasonably close to Nappa with way better hacks, like regen, cloning, and cellular level attacks, as well as the fact that his Sage mode grants a slight speed edge. As opposed to Ichigo who, with scaling off of Kenny destroying the Don guy, upscaling from Old Man Yama or even Squad Zero, he could likely rival or match Nappa without the need for any power-ups, although his speed is a little bit tricky as he's still the only one of the big three who can't predict the future. However, this part is where most people would say the big three do firmly stop, as the final battle of the Saiyan saga is against Dragon Ball's strongest enemy up to date, by a massive 36 times if you want to highball it, and he's one of the most popular characters in the franchise to boot. So no matter who I say wins, this is gonna be a tough one to sell with you guys, so just hear me out. Consistently, Prince Vegeta with a casual power level at 10,000 and a full power of well over 18,000 should consistently be in the large planet plus ranges, no matter what continuity you use. In the anime, we see Vegeta destroy an entire world with the point of 2 fingers, his father, who's weaker than him, destroys 3 or so with the swipe of an arm, and almost every source in and outside of the Dragon Ball manga supports a power level of 10,000 as being capable of destroying basically any planet within the DBZ verse, with Earth always being referred to as a small planet as opposed to a full-sized one in the Dragon Ball cosmology, which is really where most of the contention arrives. But even at that, Vegeta's multipliers like the Gallic Gun, which grants a simple 2x amp, is capable of turning the whole Earth into cosmic space dust. Whereas by comparison, his Great Ape form is considered to be over a 10 times multiplier to one's power level, making Vegeta a staggering 180,000, which creeps firmly into those dwarf star, if not straight up star levels of power. However, it is important to note that this form is notoriously not very agile, as well as being quite taxing because he has to nerf his active power level to even activate the form with a power ball, since he needs the moon's light to power it up. But unfortunately for him, Dragon Ball characters don't really seem to like that thing very much. And his last weakness is the most prominent of all, being that removing his tail will unfortunately drop him back to his nerfed base form. But to make up for it, Vegeta should, by the same concept as the others, be many times faster than the speed of light, off of upscaling from the same moon blasts featured in early Dragon Ball. So how far does the big duo of Ghost Guy and Geriatric Ninja President fare in comparison. And well, to be frank, this is sorta where I think they'll fall off in power level, with a base 6 paths Naruto likely being around that Nappa to suppressed Vegeta range pretty consistently, which pretty much just leaves us with whatever other abilities are in Naruto's toolkit, since I don't think he'd be winning a straight brawl. And similar to the Raditz Luffy scenario on a way bigger scale, Naruto should at least edge out a speed advantage with his planet-wide precog, and in terms of hacks abilities, due to losing the Truth Seeker balls, his best plans are going to be spamming the Shadow Clones to make copies of himself, using Rasen Shuriken, which attacks like a cellular level poison, using Boil Release, which should actually give Naruto temporary Vegeta Plus level physicals, as we saw when Team Naruto ripped off Kaguya's arm with it, or you could talk about using Baryon mode here, but let's save that for another time. The same stuff is logically pretty true for Ichigo here too as well, as in his base mode he was already quite strong, but with Horn of Salvation, Ichigo managed to cut straight through a Soul King infused Yuha, who should be many degrees above planetary, and using a potential true Bankai, we know that he could be hundreds if not thousands of times stronger, while completely ignoring a potential true final Getsuga Tensho. But once again, I'm gonna say it, his lack of precognition and other notable hacks does hold him back a bit. In my eyes though, while a bit of a hot take, considering a power level of 8,000 Goku was able to pull out a draw here with some minor plot intervention, while Naruto and Ichigo would both struggle more than a bit with their basic toolkits, if push came to shove, Naruto with his regeneration, hacks abilities, and also massive avatar to protect him, as well as Ichigo having similar if not slightly higher levels of overall power than Naruto to aid in fighting off Vegeta, while keeping something like a final Getsuga Tensho in his back pocket to maybe go for a win, given the same help that Goku had, I do think Naruto and Ichigo could barely pass the Saiyan saga. But since you can probably imagine from the way I've talked about this last fight, as soon as the duo arrive on Namek and the Ginyu Force show up, who are all 2 to 3 times stronger than the regular old Saiyan Saga Vegeta, this really won't be going over so well for the big duo, as even if we say they're close enough in power to beat the Ginyu Force somehow, as soon as they pull up on Ginyu himself, who is almost as strong as a Great Ape Vegeta, not only will he have no weaknesses to exploit by comparison, granting him a good chance of just ragdolling in stats if you aren't highballing Naruto or Ichigo, but with the body swap, he literally can't lose, since Ichigo and Naruto have no way to prevent someone this strong and fast from tagging them with the swap technique, which would cause them to lose their bodies for good, even if they did try to pull out one of their trump cards for some reason. Meaning that by themselves, Ichigo and Naruto probably don't even make it to Frieza. However, I will say that if you bring these 3 back from the brink and put them all together into one Goku replacing Super Squad, I do firmly believe they can blast past Ginyu, since although Luffy is practically a statue here, with the multiplier for Baryon mode or final Getsuga Tensho likely putting these two on or well above the level of Captain Ginyu if you're generous, while also still having access to a powerful enough partner to put each other down if they were to get body swapped, the big 3 with some decent hype could definitely make it through. But they will hard stop at the literal dominator of the universe, who, I kid you not, is mathematically 1,000 times stronger than Ginyu, meaning Frieza is just pointing at one of them and causing instantaneous death 3 times. Even if Naruto, Ichigo, and Luffy are your favorite characters in fiction, and you've been drinking the Power Scalar Kool-Aid to hype them up to the uber maximum giga hype, a hypothetical star-level Luffy still won't be clearing Frieza, and even a potential Universal Plus range Naruto and Ichigo probably aren't clearing the Buu Saga, with most things in GT or Super being laughably one-shot diff above even these stupidly misinterpreted versions of the characters. So here are the final tallies for me. I'd guess Naruto makes it to chapter 287 before getting body swapped with Ginyu and losing, with Vegeta or the Ginyu Force potentially ending it a little early for him. I'd guess Luffy makes it to chapter 236 before getting karate chopped by Nappa, and could definitely lose to Raditz if he's not very careful. I'd guess Ichigo would make it to chapter 287 as well before being body swapped and defeated, though with Vegeta or the Ginyus being a similar problem to him as Naruto. And as a whole squad, the big 3 manages to make it to the Frieza fight. They all pull out their ultimate self-sacrificing moves, nuke the tyrant, think they've defeated Frieza, and then he just pulls out a "this isn't even my final form" and solos, with them unironically still being under the threat of a squad wipe from Captain Ginyu no less. But those are just my thoughts, so tell me yours down below. Or hey, maybe even suggest your own episode, since this was a fan recommendation by more than a few of my awesome subscribers. And if you'd like to be part of said goated group, then just click the button. It means a lot since we're aiming to hit 1K subs before the end of the year, but regardless, feel free to check out our take on Goku Vs Superman. Before you go though, I'm sure you'll love it. And that's all for today. Thanks, everyone.